All right, so I have seen a few videos in regards to the Critical Drinker, but I don't really check up on the channel like that, if I'm being honest. Um, Even when it comes down to other channels and movie reviews, I don't really look at them. However, Alien Romulus I did see, and I'm curious to see how he would feel about this, knowing the type of personality that he has on YouTube. So, yeah, I genuinely think that this is the horror movie of the decade. Honestly, it was fantastic to me. It's just when you sit back and you think about the movie, along with having knowledge of the Alien franchise, you scratch your head at a lot of things. And it's not even a lot of things, it's just certain small things. And what doesn't help is that Marvel has Alien comics where they are trying to expand the mythos and all of that good stuff. And the thing is, they've been consistent so far. And even then, they've established certain rules in that follow the movies that Alien Romulus does not follow. So, that's just the glaring issue that I have. Overall, the movie's still good, and yeah, I just want to see what he has to say.
I think it's fair to say that the Alien franchise hasn't exactly gone from strength to strength over the years.
Yeah,
Yeah, it opened strong with one of the greatest horror movies of all time, followed by an action packed sequel that retained the tension and horror while upping the stakes and pacing. Then it all started to go downhill with a grim, mean spirited third installment that spoiled everyone's fun, and a weird, tacky, cash grab fourth movie that we don't talk about now.
yeah, that was
After
a
trying and
direct.
failing twice to cross.
All right, yeah. Alien Resurrection genuinely felt like a sci-fi original movie, if I'm being honest. Um, that's where you had them swimming and all that as well. And I felt like when it came down to like 90s movies, because of like that one shark movie that I forgot the name of. Was it called Deep Blue Sea? I'm not entirely sure, but it was that movie with the meme of Samuel L. Jackson. You know what I'm talking about. That movie, like everyone needed a water scene apparently, and that was the water scene for the aliens, which it was decent, I guess. Alien versus Predator, the first one was pretty fun, if I'm being honest. Requiem was also stupid, very stupid, but also fun in its own way too. Kind of. I didn't like the hospital wing stuff though. If you know, you know. But yeah, Prometheus. I thought Prometheus was fun as well. I just wish that they, well, he'll probably say it.
Crossover with the Predator franchise, we were subjected to a pair of overblown, overhyped prequels that tried to answer questions nobody wanted to ask and
Yeah,
proved that film
yeah,
directors don't always get better with age. And honestly,
yeah.
that really felt like the end. Every
But
possible
like,
avenue.
all right. I'll stop you right there. Prometheus got lost in not wanting. Well, Prometheus, the problem was it was supposed to be, from what I can tell when that movie was announced, it was supposed to not be an Aliens movie. And maybe there was studio interference or what have you, but it ended up turning into an Aliens prequel. And the problem was you had. My thing is, if Prometheus would have came out around this time, the movie would have been successful because it would have had the horror factor of being infected by a foreign disease after everything with the lockdowns a couple years back. So that's what would have made the movie good, is if it came out closer to this time. Covenant Covenant was better because it was more consistent, I would say. Like all right, I'll let him continue.
avenue had been explored, every permutation of the original concept had been tried, and the poor old xenomorphs had finally been defeated by the one enemy that even they couldn't overcome: corporate greed. But
Okay.
hey, when you're a creatively and morally bankrupt studio that's paid an obscene amount of money for 20th Century Fox and all the IPs under their banner, you're gonna find a way to dig just a little deeper. Which brings
Yeah.
me neatly along to Alien Romulus. Ditching the pretentious, high-minded philosophy of the Prometheus movies, the trailers instead promised a more stripped-down, back-to-basics approach to the Alien franchise. A
Yeah.
smaller budget, practical effects, and a return to the retro-futuristic production design of the earlier movies. So
And I'm sure he's going to talk about this. There was one scene with CGI that was completely garbage, which I feel like would have been studio interference to a degree. The CGI was garbage for that. Everything else did look phenomenal, though. There were stupid decisions that were made with. I mean, I don't want to spoil it if he's not going to spoil it, but
far so good, but does it actually deliver? Well, watching
yeah.
Alien Prometheus feels like two very different movies awkwardly bolted together. The first one is a tight, well-paced sci-fi thriller with a simple premise, great production design, a small cast of characters, an intriguing mystery, and some excellent performances by talented actors. In short, it's a simple but effective foundation for what could have been a decent Alien movie. The problems begin when setup has to give way to execution, and the tension gets squandered by the predictable horror tropes of dumb characters making dumb decisions, protracted chase.
So that's what I wanted to talk about. I felt like the movie would have done better if, and I understand that the way this movie is set up, they're setting this up as if, all right, this is the modern Alien movie. This is the movie that you want to actually start with, so on and so forth. Like, you don't necessarily have to watch Alien or Aliens to get into this movie. This could be everyone's first Alien movie or something along those lines, and it has a bit of both mixed between the two. But I felt like this movie would have done better if there were more fodder characters. I would say there are some decisions certain characters do that were completely unnecessary when they did something smart minutes prior. So again, the movie would have been better if there were more fodder characters, or if we got a proper prelude to everything that would have happened on that station. But again, he's probably going to explain it, so
chase scenes, shameless key jangling, and repurposed dialogue. And by the end, all sense of logic and consequences goes completely out the window, and the film devolves into mindless action and goofy attempts at body horror. Now, I suspect I'm going to take a lot of flack for saying this, because for some reason everyone fucking loves this movie, but what the hell? I am become Drinker, the destroyer of dreams. Anyway, grab your pulse rifle and motion tracker and let's...
Alright, so I already see where the issue is here. I love the movie as well, despite its flaws. But just because I love the movie doesn't mean it's perfect, though. Like, there are clear as day lore-breaking things in this movie, in which, when you're watching it for the first time, and literally, when I watched it, I said, wait a second, that's happening way faster than it should be. Like, I literally said that watching the movie. So, there are issues with this movie, but is it better than Resurrection? Is it better than Requiem? Is it better than 3? Or the first AVP? Story-wise, character-wise, yes. There is. Yes, it is better than all of those movies I mentioned. But is it on par with Aliens? Is it on par with Alien? It's not. It's really not. I think, to me, it's on the same level as Covenant, which I enjoyed Covenant for what it was. It's just, I don't know what David is doing, and if I knew what David is doing and how this relates back to the original Alien, I would feel better about Covenant. But yeah.
Begin, shall we? So Romulus is set about 20 years after the events of the original Alien, and it kicks off with a Weyland-Yutani ship recovering the original xenomorph from the wreckage of the Nostromo. Now, I'm pretty sure that the Nostromo was vaporized by not one, but 3 thermonuclear explosions. And the xenomorph was blasted out into space from Ripley's escape pod, so the chances of actually finding it 2 decades later are about equal to finding an attractive woman at a Warhammer convention. But man, it sure is cool to see stuff from the original movie, am I right? Keep that little writing philosophy in mind because it'll be important later. Anyway.
Okay, so I'll be honest. I didn't watch Alien or Aliens leading up to Romulus because I had a general idea of what this was going to be about. I knew this was set between the two as well. I'm also wondering if they continue on with this universe, is Alien Isolation canon? And if so, is this new character Rain and Amanda Ripley, are they going to meet up at some point? Not entirely sure. Maybe. But that's what I mean. If you watch those first 2 movies, you will definitely find problems with this movie. So, again, it's still a good movie. It is. I also was confused by it being in a rock, I guess, or a meteor, but I'm guessing it's to protect itself. Maybe? I'm not entirely sure. If I remember correctly, we may have. Let me not get too far.
The real action picks up with our main character, Rain, who works as a labourer on a mining planet run by the company. She lives with a decommissioned android named Andy, who acts as a kind of adopted brother for her. Anyway, she's not exactly thrilled to be trapped on a planet where it's dark 24 hours a day and the life expectancy hovers somewhere around medieval Europe. Honestly, love, try living in Scotland. It seems like a picnic by comparison. But when her contract gets extended due to labour shortages, it's pretty obvious that the company is never actually going to let her leave. That's when she's contacted.
Fun fact, that's Darth Bane's origin, by the way. Father died, he inherited his debt. And for whatever reason, the debt just keeps going up. Oh, you need to eat? That goes to your debt. Oh, you need to sleep? Well, your rent goes to your debt. Okay.
By her ex-boyfriend Tyler with news that a derelict space station has been detected orbiting the planet. Tyler and his crew plan to head up there in a cargo hauler, steal some cryopods, and use them to travel to a much nicer planet a few light years away. The catch is that they need Andy's help because he's the only one who can interface with the station's computer. Before you can ask questions like, why is nobody else investigating this space station? Or, wouldn't Weyland-Yutani have sent out their own recovery team for it? Rain and the others are on their way.
So those questions, I don't mind because the fact that this is going to burn up in the atmosphere just says, all right, yeah, evidence erased. We've probably already shipped out all the xenomorphs we can. I'm sure they'll make a tie-in comic for this because for whatever reason we have to have tie-in comics for everything that isn't a Marvel movie project for some reason. I'm not sure why. There's like a new Predator comic as well that I think is canon, where there is a girl wearing Predator armor hunting down other Predators for revenge. It's coming back to me. But yeah, I didn't question that too much because I feel like it was a lost cause. Even though, again, one of the more recent comics, I think it was called Alien Bloodline, where you had them go to the station and I think one of the former Marines was named Gabriel. And he was tasked with getting xenomorphs off the station, so maybe there was an attempt coming and maybe they were en route. I'm not entirely sure, but that's one of those questions you can turn your brain off for.
They make it on board and discover that the station isn't derelict at all. In fact, it was some kind of classified research facility experimenting on the xenomorph, and well, it went about as well as you might expect. The other problem is that its orbit is decaying, so they only have a few hours to find what they need, get back to their ship and get the hell out of there. Not bad. A small group of characters with a clear objective, a ticking clock, a dangerous threat to contend with, and some interpersonal tension to ratchet up the drama. Not exactly revolutionary, but a decent foundation for a neat little alien adventure. Unfortunately, this is where the script starts to go off the rails. One of the crew gets infected by a facehugger and tries to escape on the cargo hauler, but oh no, the chestburster kills her just as they're lifting off. You know, I'm pretty sure that the whole process from facehugger to chestburster is supposed to take a couple of days, but now it's basically instantaneous for the sake of plot convenience.
Exactly, and that is the major issue that I had after thinking about the movie, where that happened way too fast. Like, there was no clear indication of time passing. In Alien and in Aliens, there are clear as day indications of time passing and how time is stressed in these movies a lot. And I feel like that's where most of the movies ended up like losing its shine, I guess. When you had Alien 3, Resurrection, all that, it's like time wasn't really indicated as a true factor. Where it's like, hey, we gotta get this done, we gotta go. It's only a matter of time, like, hey. But like what they could have done, right, is they could have had the aliens show up and not have a chest burster scene, or had a chest burster scene happen like midway through the ship being en route. Like, you could have had multiple characters, you could have had that fodder type of situation. He's probably going to go over this, but I'll tell you where I think this scene should have taken place at.
And oh no, the cargo hauler crashes into the station and causes a big explosion that pushes it off orbit and then comes to rest completely intact in a hangar on the other side of the station. Wow, that was a lucky chain of events.
Yeah.
Lucky it didn't just tumble off into space or get completely destroyed like the dropship from Aliens. Remember that? Remember how it triggered an overload in the atmosphere processor so the characters had to find a way to escape? The writers of this script certainly do. And while I'm on that subject, that's not the only idea that they borrowed from other movies. Remember the pulse rifles? Remember Ash? Remember the alien hive? Remember the laser mist? Remember the black goo?
What was that black goo?
Remember the alien Skeletor baby? Remember the fourth act stinger? Remember this line?
I prefer the term artificial person myself.
Or this line?
But you have my sympathies.
Or this line?
Get away from her, you bitch.
I've heard enough of this, and I'm asking you to pull the plug.
Honestly, I could probably spend about 2 hours listing all the stuff this film shamelessly steals from other movies in the franchise, but for the sake of brevity, I'll move on. So the main objective now is for the gang to hike across the station, avoid the aliens, recover the car.
I'm not gonna lie. Hold on.
So the main objective now is for the gang to hike.
This was a fantastic scene. I hope he praises this scene as well, where this whole getting around acid, and if you've seen my trailer reaction, I was like, wait a second, do they have to like actually navigate through acid in 0G? What? And this scene was actually fantastic. It was kind of weird how she got away from it. Just a tiny bit weird, but visually, this was something new and nice, and I do hope he praises this scene. This was actually a good scene that didn't steal from other Alien movies, but like it makes you wonder, in Space No One Can Hear You Scream, why didn't we have a scene like this, unless I'm missing it from another Alien movie? But hey,
across the station, avoid the aliens, recover the cargo hauler, and escape before the whole place goes boom. Oh yeah, and Andy's been upgraded with a new operating system, so he's like Super Andy now. But can they still trust him, or is he now a servant of the company? What's the true purpose behind the research here, and will any of them make it out alive? Now, I don't want to go all in on the negativity right off the bat. There are things in Romulus that I really appreciated, so let's go through them first. The cinematography, production design, props, costumes, and soundtrack are all excellent. They've
Yeah.
successfully replicated the look and feel of the original movie, and I appreciated the opening segment on the mining colony that gives us an actual window into what it's like for normal people working on a Weyland-Yutani worlds. I like the early hints that humans are struggling with deep space colonization, hence the attempts to mix them with alien DNA to make them stronger. Yeah, the payoff doesn't make much sense when you realise the solution is to turn all of humanity into horrifyingly deformed monsters, or the fact that they already have perfect workers in the form of androids who never get tired or sick or have to be paid, but whatever. I like the fact that this project was done on a pretty modest budget of 80 million without sacrificing quality or scope, proving that you don't need hundreds of millions of dollars to deliver a top-notch visual experience. It uses a lot of practical effects, there's some decent gore and body horror, and the production probably saved a ton of money by not hiring any big-name actors. On that subject, the cast all do a reasonable job. I say reasonable rather than great because they're nowhere near as memorable as the crew of the Nostromo, for example, partly because the decision to cast a bunch of 20-somethings robs them of some much-needed gravitas, and partly because the script doesn't tell us a whole lot about them.
Yeah, but my counter argument would that be when I go on YouTube, I get like a lot of like, oh, celebrities turning this, that, and the other, and I'm always seeing like the older actors and all of that. I am for the new generation, right? Like Denzel Washington can only live but so long, you know? Same thing with Keanu Reeves and all of that. They are stereotypes, though. This guy, I'm assuming these two were together just based off of this whole moment that they had. But what's weird is the dude's sister, and I'm guessing maybe because she's younger, that she doesn't have the accent her brother has. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Kind of weird, but I understand why they have young actors in this. It's the same thing with the original Blair Witch Project, where you had a bunch of pretty much no-name actors, which sold you on the idea of, oh, this is real, and so on and so forth. But yeah,
despite the amount of time we actually spend with them. In Alien, I felt like I knew the crew pretty well within like the first 15 minutes, but by the
Yeah.
end of Romulus, I struggled to name a single character or what their personality was like because they all have the same background, played by actors of roughly the same age. The only exception to all of this is David Johnson, who does a superb job playing two completely different versions of the same character in Andy. It's great stuff, and he really captures the innocent vulnerability of a being that's trying his best to fit in without really understanding the people around him. Kaylee Speeney is fine as Rain, I guess. She doesn't have Sigourney Weaver's intensity and charisma or Numi Rapace's physicality, but she gets the job done without too much fuss. Rain's likeable enough, and her relationship with Andy is a nice twist on the usual dynamics we see in films like this, even if it doesn't come close to the emotional impact of Ripley and Newt. The actors are fine, the director's good, and the production is excellent. The only real problem is the script, especially the third act, which throws so much ridiculous shit at you that it honestly feels like it was lifted from a completely different movie. Before you know it, characters will be flying up and down elevator shafts, fighting aliens while the gravity goes haywire, or shooting a swarm of them with a pulse rifle and acting surprised when acid blood goes flying everywhere, or injecting themselves with the black goo for no reason so that they can give birth to an alien baby that instantly...
I would say that's where I would actually put the chest burster scene in. The whole black goo baby thing, right? Spoilers, because he's pretty much already said it anyway. That is supposed to be like the twist, like the same type of vibe as all the other Alien movies, where, all right, you think you're safe, and then bam, another monster comes out for a final fight and final confrontation, and so on and so forth. That was fine to a degree. Yeah, it was okay, but I would have really liked and enjoyed if the chestburster scene happened, or if the other girl, the Asian girl that unfortunately I don't remember her name, if she would have lived long enough to carry that in her chest, and we find out that she has the embryo. I'm not sure how they would actually do it within like that final scene. It would have been it would have been genuinely fascinating, and it would have like set up a sequel, in my opinion, properly, or even set up like a comic series, book series, or even like a new video game where you have that cliffhanger at the end of Alien Isolation, where it could be a situation where Amanda Ripley, she's picked up after those whole events, right? And she comes across the same planet that they're going to, where we find out, hey, the reason why there's an alien outbreak is because one of the girls, the surviving girls from Alien Romulus, was impregnated. Like, that's where I would have put that scene with the chestburster. It happened so quickly just for plot convenience, when it was already established that there are multiple aliens already on the ship. So I just again, when you watch the movie, it's fine for the sake of the movie. It's just when you know Alien, you're scratching your head thinking, wait a second, I see what you're doing here, but that's not how that works. Another argument that you can make is because if you've seen my breakdown of one of the trailers, the face huggers looked darker, right? And of course, this is a clone of the original xenomorph, so on and so forth. So maybe there's some genetic differences between the two and all that. So what could have been explained was, hey, because we've done such experimentations, and um, because we wanted to really study this thing, we forced the growth of this apex predator, which could also force the growth of the whole gestation period, where you get that chest burster scene. It's not explained. I'm sure it will be explained away, or there's going to be a director's cut that shows a longer passage of time, because that's my only issue, is that the time does not make sense to me. But yeah.
Goo for no reason, so that they can give birth to an alien baby that instantly transforms into a 10-foot tall human xenomorph engineer hybrid for yet another climactic showdown. The script just never lets up. It doesn't know when to quit, and instead of being exhilarating, it just becomes kind of tedious and exhausting by the ends. All that carefully crafted tension and world building just goes out of the window in a confusing maelstrom of what I can best describe as J.J. Abrams' brand of rapid fire stupidity. Just keep hitting the audience with more idiotic stuff that makes zero sense but looks really good, so they never have time to stop and think about it before the next dumb thing comes along. Basically, Romulus has got a strong opening, a slightly shaky middle, and a finale that screws the pooch so hard that the pooch is going to be in therapy for the rest of its natural life. It's not exactly a terrible movie, but it's definitely not great either, and what's frustrating is that all the right elements were there to deliver something so much better than what we got. And what's weird is that people seem to be going nuts over this film. It's had a huge opening weekend, and if you believe the chatter online, it's the greatest thing since Sigourney Weaver picked up a pulse rifle. To people who think that way, I would politely suggest they go back and rewatch the first two Aliens movies, really think about how they worked, how they handle their characters and relationships, and escalate the tension and stakes while staying fairly believable, and then come back and tell me what you really think about Romulus. Somehow, I don't think you'll be quite so positive. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would agree with that. I don't even have to rewatch the first two Alien movies to know that, hey, this movie is cool, but it's not really on par. Honestly. Like, it's a good movie. It really is, but and I understand why he believes he's going to get flack for this. I completely understand why. It's primarily due to the fact that you have people who are praising this movie, and when people praise things, it's like any form of criticism just seems too loud of criticism. But this is a universe that has lore that is not being it's not reworked in any form or fashion. They've established a multitude of times that it takes time for the gestation period to happen. So the fact that it just happens out of nowhere with no feasible explanation is weird. It is. But I agree with it for the most part. I do not agree with certain aspects, like the younger actors, along with the why people are like overall excited about this movie. Again, I view it as this being a situation where this is everyone's first real Alien movie, or again, like he said, maybe you have to rewatch those movies to really see. I don't have to rewatch them. I already know, but overall, the movie's good. It's better than Alien 3, Alien Resurrection. It's better than Prometheus. To me, it's on par with Covenant to a certain extent. And I don't want to compare it to Alien versus Predator because Alien versus Predator are stupid movies, but they're stupid in a fun way. And they serve their own purpose for what they're supposed to be. But yeah, overall, I would say I agree with at least 80% of everything he's had to say. But yeah, let me know what you think, and that's pretty much it.